I'm Matt Sclafani. I'm with Cornell Cooperative Extension's Marine Program of Suffolk County. DC in 2007 needed to comply with the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission in that they needed to monitor horseshoe crabs in all of the states, as it was once an unregulated fishery. And we started this project, like I said, in 2007, and it was a collaboration between us and the state, and it was intended to get census data or population data on the horseshoe crabs in New York. Traditionally, this fishery has never been monitored or actually targeted for population census. It's sort of been a background fishery that was unregulated for many, many years. And I guess what had happened is the shorebirds that feed on their eggs actually started to decline in numbers, and that brought a lot of attention down in Delaware Bay. And the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission stepped in to try to promulgate regulations. This survey that we run here is actually a citizen-based program. It started kind of humbly with a couple of sites, maybe 3 or 4 sites throughout Long Island. Long Island's a huge geographic area. It's kind of hard to cover every single beach, so what we do is we have reference beaches. And these reference beaches actually allow us to say something about what's going on within an estuary. So we have several different estuaries, the South Shore estuary that we're here right now, which is Moriches Bay. And then we have Peconic Estuary and Long Island Sound. They're all different unique estuaries, and we can monitor at different sites. And at these sites, we tend to have volunteers that get involved. They take an active role. We have a site coordinator at each site who recruits volunteers, and the volunteers go out on 3 nights around each full and new moon in the months of May and June.
So everyone's pace is a little bit different. I'm sure your pace is going to be a lot smaller than my pace. It might take you 10 steps to get where we're going to go, where it might take me 3 steps. So we've calibrated everything to Gloria's pace. So we're just going to let her walk, and you'll see how she drops the quadrat. We're going to count the crabs simply by any crab that's half in the quadrat or more, we're going to count. So we got to kind of be unbiased about this and not throw the quadrat 2 crabs. I know everyone wants to count them, but we have to just let the quadrat count where it lies.
And we collect data using counting methods. We simply go out and count the horseshoe crabs. We use quadrats at some of the beaches, and then we measure the size and the sex, as well as the tagging them, so we can get information about movements and possibly survival rates.
I'm Kim McCowan. I work with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and I'm the crustacean unit leader. And even though horseshoe crabs technically is not a crustacean, they're actually more closely related to spiders and scorpions. Right. Yeah. As far as the state's concerned, it's managed as a crab, and that's why the management is in my unit. The reason we're doing this survey is we need to collect information on horseshoe crab abundance in the waters around New York to really help us manage, because you can't decide how many horseshoe crabs can sustainably be harvested from the waters if you don't have a good idea how many are out there.
One of the reasons for the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission to step in was that the birding community was very concerned about the decline of the red knot, which is actually close to being listed as an endangered species. And as a result of their decline, they kind of attribute that to the decline also at the same time of horseshoe crabs and their eggs that are on the beach that they feed on. So there wasn't really much data on horseshoe crabs at that time that these things were going on to show that it was due to one factor or another. But the results of some offshore surveys and some of the beach surveys that were going on in Delaware showed that, in fact, the populations were down significantly. It's a vulnerable species. It's one of the species that literally you can see them when they come right out onto the beach to spawn. They're easy to collect. So it's a fishery that can be easily over-harvested, and it just needs to be maintained at a level that is, can be managed consecutively throughout the years.
We're just starting to get enough data to start making decisions. Generally, you want at least 5 years of data so you can track trends to see what's going on with the population, because from year to year you may collect more or less depending on the weather, depending on
Volunteers.
the volunteers. There are lots of variables that'll make the numbers go up and down.
Right.
But if you look over time, you'll get an idea, is it trending down, is it trending up, or is it sort of flat?
We've seen a pretty steady level of population or spawning activity at each of the sites. There's been some declines in some areas, but overall on average it's been holding steady. So the good news is that we're not seeing major declines in any areas that we've been monitoring. There is some evidence of a little decline in some of the North Shore sites, and that's consistent with the New England data that they've been showing consistent declines over the last couple of years. So, but the South Shore beaches seem to be holding a pretty steady population. I've been doing this because I find the ecology of this animal fascinating. It's not an animal I had originally ever foresaw myself studying, but it's a species that's played a really important role ecologically, and it's evolutionarily a fascinating animal. We've seen all kinds of interesting results in a sociological setting also, where you see the bayman trying to stay on the water and would keep that cottage fishery that's been around, or it's a traditional fishery for a long time on Long Island, and so that was appealing to kind of work between all these different user groups and the environmental groups and the government that's trying to regulate. So it's a very interesting problem, and I find it fascinating. There's a lot of passionate arguments on all sides of this, but hopefully we can continue to have some kind of a strong conservation management plan that enables all shareholders to benefit.
I'll be honest, I think we need to continue this project from now on for as long as we're allowing a fishery on the species, because we're going to need to be able to track from year to year what's going on with the abundance, and I think this is the type of survey that can really give us the data.
So from year to year could change, and you want to know that.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
Absolutely. And the fishery is not the only thing that can change. There are other impacts. If we have dredging projects, if we have development, shoreline hardening, all of that can impact horseshoe crab populations. And actually, sea level rise, which we feel is occurring with global warming, that's going to affect horseshoe crab, just the beach availability for spawning.